better than what it is and going out and taking game one, 98-80. Only two road teams won this past weekend when it came down to opening the series, and that would be the Pacers and the New Orleans Pelicans that won this past weekend. Aim was misunderstood, don't need to be explained, because let's jump to the Cavaliers and what the Cavaliers did. They only had one starter. One freaking starter. You telling me one starter that in the lineup that had double digits, and that's LeBron James naturally. 24, 10 rebounds, and 12 assists. That's what he had this past weekend. And I guess to my knowledge, and basketball fans, if you hear me, talk to me, give me some feedback when you think about this one. I think to a degree this roster starting to look more and more like post LeBron James when he leaves. And you be like, what you mean, black man? Let me explain something to me. Let me preach to you right quick. What I'm saying is, to a degree, if you take away them 24 points that LeBron James had, do you know who your second leading scorer in this ball game? I bet you don't. Your second leading scorer in this ball game was J.R. Smith with 15 freaking points. 15 points. Do you know who your third leading scorer is in this ball game? I bet you don't. Larry Nance only had 10 points. So between the bench, it's sad to say to a degree, the bench outscored the starters. 15-10, actually, 15-10. They outscored the starters, but almost to compare to what the rest of the team did, Kevin Love in the starting lineup, 9.17 rebounds, not going to get the job done. George Hill, 7 points. Rodney Hood, 9 points. So 15 points, 6 for Jordan Clarkson. That's unacceptable. He got to play better. And I understand a lot of these players haven't been in the playoffs. Nance never been in the playoffs. Jordan Clarkson's never been in the playoffs. But guess what? You playing with the best player in the league. You have to take your game to the next level. Because obviously, the man put up a triple-double and lost. You feel me? How you lose with a triple-double like that? But this team starting to look more and more like post-LeBron James if LeBron James lead. I said this on last Friday. I said straight up, if LeBron would leave, why LeBron wouldn't want to go to Philadelphia? You see how close Philadelphia is right now. After game one, Philadelphia had me sold like they are really just missing the true ISO player in that system. You know, Embiid is great, but Embiid's still a raw talent. He's getting better every day to a certain degree. So that's why I'm saying Philly really looking for the ISO player, the one player that's going to make matchups one-on-one. And you take the passing of Ben Simmons and the passing of LeBron James in each lineup, this going to be a hard combination. That's why I said Philadelphia. I think he will. I think after this series, because I don't see them going past the second round. You know, I got to look at the bracket. But I mean, hell, how it look right now. I mean, we got to see when they play again. But if Indiana can continue to play hard and play smart basketball, something that this roster not really are capable of doing right now, I don't see why Indiana can't win this in 6 games. Then you know for a fact that they're going to be getting out. He's going to be leaving Cleveland. He leaves Cleveland, think about this. What's going to happen from there? Your roster, hate to say it, even you still got the Brooklyn pick, so you're going to be in the lottery. So guess what? Even with Rodney Hood and you keep George Hill and Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance, you get probably rid of J.R. Smith. I think you need to get rid of Tristan Thompson. That's a bad contract. Kyle Korver, that's a bad contract. A few other guys I think I'll get rid of. But if you still find to get some productive players and keep Kevin Love to make that your truly 1-2 guy on the offense and defensive end. Remember, before Kevin Love left Minnesota, he was a double-double machine. Now, I don't know if he can really do that anymore because he's a little older. But he's still enough to be a productive player in the Eastern Conference, still get to the All-Star game, push your team between the 5, 6, 7 seeds. Because I think Dan Gilbert, the owner of the Cavaliers, is a lot smaller than what he was a few years ago. A few years ago, he let LeBron James walk, and he really had no roster. But when you go back and you look at the ownership a few years ago, it really wasn't so much his fault. I mean, it wasn't LeBron James' fault he wanted to leave because the roster he had wasn't really that good. Antoine Jameson was one of your best players. You had to have Larry Hughes at one point in time. You had Boobie Gibson, a man that was married to Keisha Cole, who was so fine. He messed that up. You know what I'm saying? Boobie Gibson coming from Texas. You know, Mo Williams, who was a stud. But when it was time for LeBron left and Mo Williams, I mean, Mo Williams didn't didn't do nothing when LeBron left. That's how great LeBron made Mo Williams better. Shaquille O'Neal was there for a little while when Julius Ilgauskas. Julius Ilgauskas was one of the greatest of all time in that franchise history. Didn't work out, had bad rosters. I think Dan Gilbert has gotten smart as a businessman and said, I need to make a roster for post LeBron James if he leaves again. And if he leaves Cleveland again, I have something. And I think this is at least a starting foundation that still can win you between 43, 44, 42 games, and maybe 45 games in a year to have you still in the top 8 of the Eastern Conference and still make a run for the playoffs. That's what it's all about. You look where the Miami Heat's at right now. LeBron left. You got stuck with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh had injury problems. So Miami really went through some hard times to get back in where they at right now in the league to say they back in the playoffs. Now, granted, they had a couple of playoffs since he left, but it really taken a while because they don't have truly a superstar, a mega superstar. Granted, Goran Dragic made the All-Star team, but he was reserve of reserve. It took so many people to get hurt before the All-Star team, before Goran Dragic finally got a chance to be in the All-Star game. And then when he made it, his minutes was limited. So he's reserve of reserve. No disrespect to Goran Dragic. I think he's a hell of a basketball player. But look how long it's taken Miami to finally get back to the playoffs. And look how long it's going to take for Miami to really be back. I think Miami still got another 3-4 years to really think about getting the right players to have themselves a chance to win, an NBA title again. It's going to take some time. It's really going to take some time for the Miami Heat. So why wouldn't Cleveland try to start the process now? You got a lottery pick in the draft. You look at the Boston trade, y'all completely lost that trade because Isaiah Thomas is gone. You move some other pieces in that trade. That's completely gone. All thing you have is the Boston pick. What you going to do now, Cleveland? I think LeBron is going to leave. There's no reason. To me, that was a piss poor performance by the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I think knowing LeBron James, he probably take a lot of that ownership as well. But that was a piss poor performance, and there's no reason, there's no excuse for the Cleveland Cavaliers to say that they still a championship team per se to be playing that damn bad of basketball. That just makes no sense. That makes no sense at all. I just don't understand. I really don't understand because I don't know how us as NBA fans still continuously give LeBron James a pass and be like, well, they're going to be in the finals. They're going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. Guys, this roster is bad. And I know it's only one game they just played. But regardless of if they win the series with the Pacers, we got to accept reality. This roster is really bad. A bunch of old heads. I mean, Tristan Thompson's in the news for wrong reasons. He's cheating on Khloe Kardashian. I started to watch the Kardashian series. Khloe Kardashian is fine, but they got some crazy problems. I can see why he's cheating on her. Because that family is retarded to a certain degree. I'm sorry, I kind of like the Kardashians. My favorite one got to be Kourtney. I think she's the finest. But it's just something about that little short little girl. I don't know. But all in all, I just think that he has his problems. J.R. Smith, not the player he used to be a few years ago. Kyle Korver, he ain't the player he was a few years ago. And in the system, he not getting the love like he did a few years ago when he first came to Cleveland. Jordan Clarkson got to step it up. So I think we are seeing the end of an era with the Cavaliers. I think this is going to be LeBron James' last time being there. Next game that happened Sunday, I know I'm holding on to this too long. The Thunder played the Jazz. They beat the Jazz 116-108. I think, Donovan Mitchell, he got hurt. He had some evaluations over the last couple of days, so I don't know what's going to happen with Mitchell going forward, but we're going to have to wait and see about that one. Then, I don't know. I think Oklahoma City going to win this one in 5 or 6, and they're going to go on to the next round. Then Houston and the Minnesota Timberwolves. I'm going to talk about that. I was disappointed at the end of the stretch of that game how Houston was just attacking the basket. Jimmy Butler taking James Harden 1-on-1 at the end down the stretch of that game when the game was still close. They do not respect Karl Anthony Towns, and I think that's a doggone shame that Karl Anthony Towns not really respected that much in the post. Anthony Towns only had 6 points in this ball game, while Clint Capella had 24 points in this ball game. That was very, very, very like I would thought the opposite. And I know he was nervous because this was his first playoff appearance, but Anthony Towns only had 8 points, 8 points and 12 rebounds. That's not enough to get the job done. Taj Gibson had 9. Jeff Teague had 15. Jimmy Butler had 13. I can understand Jimmy Butler with 13 because he's coming back off an injury, trying to probably find himself. But he got to step it up next game as well. Derrick Rose, who really played some productive minutes for the Timberwolves, 24 minutes in that ball game, 16 points, 4 assists, and 2 rebounds in the ball game. And Jamal Crawford's 15, 2 and 2 in the game. It just gets me that Clint Capella, 24 points, 12 rebounds over Karl Anthony Towns. You know, I'm very, very, very. I just think that Anthony Towns got to come out and play a better game. They lost this game by 3. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, how they lost, it's almost like they lost by at least about 10. You know, because they didn't play well down the stretch. Especially when James started isolating, going one-on-one with everybody. They had no answer to stop James Harden. If he wanted to shoot, he could shoot. If he wanted to pass, he could pass. The whole offense was running through number 13. I want to see how they're going to put more pressure on James and how they're going to, because Chris Paul really wasn't really big in this ball game. He was just out there to a degree. I don't know what they're going to do with James Harden. Minnesota got to get it together. I want to watch more on them to give you more about them next game. So tonight, let's talk about the games tonight. Celtics going to take on the Bucks game 2. That's going to be a 7 on TNT. The Raptors going to take on the Wizards game 2. That's going to be on NBA TV. And yes, the last game I want us to talk about will be the New Orleans Pelicans versus the Portland Trailblazers, as New Orleans is up 1-0 in this series, as the Pelicans took their first playoff win in franchise history. I will repeat that, first playoff win in franchise history as the New Orleans Pelicans. They haven't won a playoff game since 2011 as the New Orleans Hornets, but the first playoff win since 2011 and first playoff win as the New Orleans Pelicans in franchise history. So congratulations to the Pelicans finally getting that monkey off their backs. Got 3 more to go to get over and go to the second round and potentially play the Warriors. But let's talk about that game a little bit. Got a couple of fun facts for all of it on Saturday night. The Pelicans did defeat them 97-95, even though New Orleans almost gave the game up, tried to give it to Portland as many times as they could. Lead man in both teams, Anthony Davis, had 35 points, and C.J. McCollum only had 19 points in the ball game. Let's look at the full box status. Nikolai Mirotic had 16. Etuan Moore, 4. We're going to talk about them in a little bit. Rondo, 6, 17 assists. Drew Holiday, who came up with some clutch defensive plays in that ball game down the stretch in the 2-minute mark. So shout out to Drew, 21 points. Ian Clark, 10. Solomon Hill, 3. Darius Miller, 0. And Chuck Diablo, 2. Let's look on the Portland side. Afu Kaminu, former Pelican, 7. Evan Turner, who was keeping them in the ball game early, doing all the right stuff in the ball game, had 13. Nurkic had 11. Lillard had 18. McCullough had 19. Off the bench, Ed Davis had 6. Collins had 8. Napier had 6. And that was about it in the game. One thing I want to see tonight when they play the Trailblazers, I really think that Dame Lillard and C.J. McCollum are going to shake back and somehow find a way to get their team back in the right positions to win this ball game. I just think I don't see why, because one thing I wanted to see game 1 that we didn't see, when the shots start to fall for Portland, I want to see how New Orleans is going to respond when they do hit the big shots in the game. And when they hit the big shots, that's when I don't want to see New Orleans try to match back with big shots, because every shot not going to fall. One fun fact that I found on Twitter, shout out to one of my partners, man. I never met him, but he cool. We talked on Twitter. Chris Connor from Full Cup Press Podcast. Y'all check them boys out, man. They really funny. I like what they be talking about, but they keep it real about the basketball world. He said, for anybody who was asking for C.J. McCollum averaged 17.5 points and 35% 35% shooting per game against the Pelicans this season. That is both fifth